and you are the people who are on the ground. As we say, ground ni tofauti. I don't know if you have listened to the things that the majority leader was saying, and whether you agree with him that the state of the nation is as painted by him and the President of the Republic. But we will leave it to your judgment, especially because you who have been introduced as Boda Boda, Mama Mboga and Mama Salon were his closest friends. So you are the ones to tell us how the situation is. Honorable Speaker, I celebrate the team from Strathmore. This is a premier university in the country. We are very proud of the work that you do in terms of molding young people to become the great citizens that we expect to be able to move our country forward. And we continue to wish you the best in the work that you are doing at the university. And also during this period that you are touring Parliament, we hope that you can pick up one or two things that will help you in your respective careers, and whatever dreams and aspirations that you have, may they come true. In Jesus' name. Don't say amen. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Boni Kalwale, you can go ahead and second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion on the exposition of the President's speech as ably moved by the Senator of Kericho. And Mr. Speaker, I've been in this Parliament long enough to witness Parliament rise to acknowledge a speech to the two houses by President Mwai Kibaki. I also witnessed the same standing ovation when it was given to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And last week, I saw the houses rise and acknowledge a standing ovation for the speech by President William Ruto. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, distinguished senators, none of you lobbied in the two houses last week that at a particular pronouncement, they should stand and give that ovation that they extended to the President. Mr. Speaker, they did this spontaneously on the spur. Mr. Speaker, can you allow the distinguished senator of Mombasa to stop?
Senator Mohamed Faki, what is your point of order?
Because I had the distinguished senator from Kakamega saying repeatedly, standing ovation, standing ovation. I know he's a gynecologist, but it's standing ovation. There's a difference between ovation and ovation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the children of Kenya have now had an opportunity yet again to understand the meaning of a frivolous point of order. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, we were never lobbied. Distinguished members of the National Assembly and this House gave that standing ovation to the President because of the content of the speech. I want us to start from there and reflect individually why we came to Nairobi in this august house. Reflect and remember that once upon a time, Singapore was part of Malaysia. And because of extreme levels of poverty, Singapore was kicked out of Malaysia. And the leaders of Singapore at that time rose to share a vision that poverty could not be the reason why they would be condemned in Malaysia. Today, because of that shared vision, they have grown Asia's most successful economy. I therefore want to appeal to our colleagues. Just like you fought in your primary school, secondary school, A-level school, up to university to succeed, let us work for a vision so that our country can come out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, this requires dedication, commitment, and a desire, Mr. Speaker, to live in the midst of success. Why do we continue celebrating politics that speak to poverty instead of politics that speak to prosperity? Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that we know what to do, but we don't do it. For example, infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, as spoken to by the President, is critical. But because of poor national decision-making, the infrastructure that can spur the economy is not given priority. For example, if we must dual roads in Kenya, the first road to dual is from Mombasa to Nairobi, followed by the road from Nairobi to Malaba border. Why? Because the gateway into our economy is Mombasa, and the exit from our economy to the biggest market to our country, Uganda, is through Malaba border. Why have we not dual those roads? Instead, we have chosen to dual the road, very important, to Central Province, not because of its economic significance, but it's because of its political significance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need a paradigm shift whereby we think Kenyan. And I want to call upon leaders from Central Province not to succumb to the pressure from a few, very few misguided leaders who some of us don't even know where they came from, who are busy trying to radicalize on tribal lines a region so critical to this country, so that, Mr. Speaker, they can have an opportunity of saying, having supported him, and now that we are talking about withdrawing the support, the country is failing. That is not the way to think. One of the motions that I'd be most proud of in this country, Mr. Speaker, is the motion that exercised the power of this parliament to remind the president and deputy president that they are not above law. This is the route to go. And I look at young members of parliament from Mount Kenya region, with due respect, shy and keep quiet, that if they take on the so-called, the big man, so-called big man of the region, they jeopardize themselves. It is not true. We've been there in 2007, Mr. Speaker, sir. The country was mobilized against the communities of Mount Kenya. And Soita Shtanda and I, we refused. And all members of parliament from the then Western Province and Nyanza Province and Rift Valley Province, if you are not in the Orange Democratic Movement, there's no way you would be elected because of the lie of mobilizing the country against one community. We stood against that, Mr. Speaker, Soita Shtanda and I, and we won the election. Despite that, I therefore want to encourage young members of parliament from Mount Kenya to ignore the threats that are meant to make you fear to embrace nationalism instead of regionalism. Mr. Speaker, having said that, allow me to speak to the agriculture sector in this speech. The President said quite a number of things, but I want to speak to sugar and coffee. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in the history of this country, we have now produced surplus sugar. I am a farmer of sugarcane, and I can assure you the reason was only one thing: subsidized fertilizer. I want to urge the governors the governor of Kwale, Tana River, Kakamega, Busia, Bungoma, Migori, Kisumu, and Homa Bay to step it a notch higher by supplementing plowing of those farms. If the young president in West Africa was able to buy tractors, I don't see anything stopping our governors from buying tractors so that cultivation, tilling our lands can be affordable to our farmers. Subsidize that, Kenya will be a net exporter of sugar into COMESA and beyond, and believe me, Forex will enter into this country to the extent that our economy will move a notch higher than where we are today. Mr. Speaker, we are now witnessing a situation whereby the sugar cartels that used to frustrate our farmers by importing cheap sugar now have been locked out. We must stand behind the president for this achievement. It was never achieved by President Kenyatta, never by Moi, never by Mwai Kibaki, never by Uhuru, but President William Ruto has achieved it. For a fact, Mr. Speaker, the support that the president is pronouncing himself on the issue of coffee, we need to do slightly more. It's unfortunate that because of the pressure of urbanization, the large coffee farmers of Kiambu have put their farms under residential houses. We now must encourage farmers from outside Central to do more coffee farming, because coffee is more productive than farming in sugarcane, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to move on and speak to the issue of health. Colleagues, let us be aware of the advent of social media. Social media is a very serious agent of misinformation. Deliberate. I did not know that they have now become so sophisticated to move from photoshopping of pictures to even photoshopping, I don't know whether you can call it photoshopping of videos. They are doing so effectively that a noble thing like the Social Health Authority with the attendant Social Health Insurance Fund is being, Mr. Speaker, blacklisted on social media to the extent that now we have a large percentage of the populace of Kenya that thinks, Mr. Speaker, that SHA and SHIF are the wrong things. I want to assure Kenyans, as a doctor of medicine, that the way to go, whether some people like it or not, is to move from NHIF to Social Health Authority and Social Health Insurance Fund. Why? Because this is a social program. A social program, Mr. Speaker, that was imagined by Charles Njonjo. Charles Njonjo, Attorney General, was indeed great. In 1966, Njonjo was disturbed that the only people enjoying insurance in health were white people and Asians. So Charles Njonjo mooted this idea. And here we are today, whereas Njonjo was responding to a population of 8 million people, we want to be stuck in a social program that was good when the country had a population of 8 million people and refused to embrace SHA and SHIF, Mr. Speaker, that are designed to meet a bigger population of 60 million people that we have in Kenya today. Mr. Speaker, the people misinforming the public are, again, politicians from a certain region, and I'm proud of the locals of that region because they have ignored that misinformation to the extent that it is the counties of Mount Kenya, led by Nyeri, followed by Kirinyaga, who are the highest in this new program. Somebody tell the former deputy president that you can play on social media, but on the ground, the people are the ones who are leading the republic in impressing Shah and Schiff, as it should be. I want to call upon the senator of Turkana, the senator of Wajir, yours truly, not yours truly, Mr. Speaker. I want to call upon the senator of Mandera. I want to call upon the senator of Garissa. Stop talking from Nairobi. Go and tell the people in Turkana, people in Mandera, people in Wajir, people in Garissa, dear Kenyans, to enlist in Shah Schiff. They are the least. You'll have your time to debate. I know you're cleverer than me, so you'll show your intelligence when your time comes.
Whip.
Okay.
Majority Whip. There's a point of order. Senator Enoch Wambua, what is your point of order?
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I'm listening to Senator Boni Alwale going on a tirade against senators, his colleagues. And I'm wondering, when did they become part of the president's speech, Mr. Speaker? And you know, Senator Alwale, through you, Mr. Speaker, has been in this house long enough to know that you don't cast aspersions against your own colleagues. And saying that they never go home, they speak from Nairobi. Who has paid him, Mr. Speaker, to spoil the names of very hard-working senators from the northern frontier, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, young Senator Wambua sometimes admires me. And I know on this particular score, he wants me to appreciate the fact that he's a journalist. I tell you, the French say, res ipsa loquitur. Facts speak for themselves. What I'm saying, sorry, that is Latin. In Latin. In Latin, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I appeal to Wambua. Think, Senator Wambua, think, my younger brother, why would Nyeri register 20.8%? And today, as we speak, Wajir has registered 1.3%. That is res ipsa loquitur in Latino. Mr. Speaker, you can interrupt me if you want.
Senator Wambua, what is your point of order?
So if Senator Mazayo understands what Senator Alwale is saying, I don't understand. Because, Mr. Speaker, there is something that I've argued in this House for many, many years. It was something called distance to service. And, you know, Senator Alwale is using the marginalization of the northern frontier and laying it on the shoulders of sitting senators, as though the senators here were supposed to go to their respective counties and do the actual registration for Shah. Mr. Speaker, Senator Alwale must be told that he should actually give us a record, if that's the path he wants us to take, of how many people he himself has registered in Kakamega County. Because that is not the responsibility of senators to register people for Shah and Schiff. The Speaker, I insist again, maybe this time he will hear me, Senator Alwale through the Speaker, please don't cast aspersions against your own colleagues. Second the motion, give us a floor We have important things to say about this motion, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua, the world is led by leaders. And the leaders, Mr. Speaker, who lead the world are not doctors, are not lawyers, are not engineers, they are not journalists. The leaders of the world are politicians. And since we are the politicians, we should learn from history. The success that we are borrowing from of NHIF was a stroke of thought by a politician by the name of Charles Njonjo. Njonjo, who sat in this house. I'll sit and insist that we must all fall back to the community and tell people *147#. Mr. Speaker, instead, when you reduce yourself to a heckler, Wambua, then we start wondering whether you went to the University of Kaparajonjo or you went to one of the universities that we know. Mr. Speaker,
Senator Aaron, you have an intervention on Boni Kalwale? Okay. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why I will not hold any punch. I want to punch educated people of this country. I want to punch people with an income and in employment of this country. I want to punch them in the mouth because they are the ones who are misinforming the public that SHIF is expensive. They want their experience to be related to by the boda boda and the mamamboga. It's a lie. SHIF is expensive because of the size of your purse. But to the ordinary Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, SHIF is cheaper than NHIF. And if we go this route, we will move insured Kenyans from 10 million people to 50 million people. And the senator of Kitui, who is truly not happy with my contribution, you are being asked to pay 32,000. And the villagers in Kitui, each will be paying 300 shillings. You should also be grateful that the people who voted for you now will have a chance to have access to health the way your wife and your children and close relatives enjoy. This is the Kenya we are fighting for. What joy would I get from the fact that my daughter, Tina, can get an attack of pneumonia and we save her, and yet her age mate gets an attack of simple upper respiratory tract infection and they die. A common cold, and they die. Yes, but Mr. Speaker, we will insist that educated people, people with high income, people in
give him the mic. I give you 1 minute to conclude and second.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for that minute. There had been so many frivolous points of orders, including somebody I beat in English thoroughly, thinking that he could teach me English. Mr. Speaker, I support strongly.
Senator Aaron Cheriot. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 27.6, the Senate, A, records its thanks for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency, the President, delivered on Thursday, 21st November 2024, and laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 26 November 2024.